I'm a fan of the Sherlock Holmes character and have seen quite a few of the modern interpretations. Holmes and Watson are iconic British characters from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and when treated with reverence and respect to the source material, there is a lot that can be done with them. Guy Ritchie's take on their characters in Sherlock Holmes and Sherlock Holmes Game of Shadows were a great watch the first time round, and reviewing them both today should be subsequently a fun time. So here's my review of...
Hang on. That's not the one you're supposed to be reviewing.
Sherlock?
No.
Elementary?
No.
Sherlock Gnomes?
Come off it.
The Peter Cushing series?
They may be my favourites, but no, come on. You know what you're supposed to be doing. You promised.
Fine. In 2018, a spoof version of the much-loved and respected characters was released starring Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. I was sceptical. After all, I'm not the biggest Will Ferrell fan. I liked him in Megamind and Stranger Than Fiction. Hey, can I review Stranger Than Fiction instead?
No.
Please?
Sorry, but you promised.
John C. Reilly in isolation I haven't seen much of. Wreck-It Ralph and Guardians of the Galaxy are about the only things I can recall, except for the one other Ferrell-Reilly team-up I've seen, Step Brothers, which I can't stand. Honestly, I cannot see the appeal in it whatsoever. After seeing the trailer for Holmes and Watson, I was legitimately angry and vowed never to see it. It was then nominated for the Film Review Open Challenge, and thanks to fundraising efforts for Medway Puzzles, it's now time to watch the film for the first time and review it. Let's rip off the band-aid. Here's my review of Holmes and Watson. Professor Moriarty is on trial for his many crimes, but every witness has been killed. The judge is told that Sherlock Holmes is on his way to give vital evidence. Holmes, on the other hand, is trying on hats at home trying to find an iconic look. He and Watson escape both a deadly mosquito attack and then a killer bee swarm to get to the courthouse with a second to go until the judge's deadline. Holmes proves that Moriarty is a lookalike and sets him free, much to Inspector Lestrade's disgust. Holmes and Watson are summoned to see Queen Victoria, which turns out to be a surprise party for Sherlock's birthday. Unfortunately, a dead body is found in his oversized cake, one of the witnesses to Moriarty's case. Lestrade is convinced that this means that Moriarty is responsible. Sherlock states that this is merely someone trying to look like Moriarty. Holmes and Watson head to the morgue where they meet Dr. Grace Hart and her assistant Millicent. The duo instantly fall for their female counterparts, but Grace suggests that Watson should be co-detectives, to which Holmes says he isn't ready yet. The autopsy is inconclusive, but Sherlock suggests that it's poisoning and tests this by poisoning Watson. He gives him the antidote on the way to their next stop, the rough part of London, to find a one-armed tattooist named Klinger who tattooed the corpse. They find him in a gym, and after fighting a monster of a man named Brawn, they question Klinger, who is stabbed in the back by Moriarty. Watson throws the knife and mortally wounds Moriarty, who's revealed to be the same doppelganger as the courtroom. He gives them a lump of coal and tells them to head to Newcastle. Back at home, Watson suggests that Grace and Millicent work for the killer, but after a short trip to the park, he discards this theory and seeks out the help of his brother Mycroft. Mycroft suggests that someone close to Sherlock is the culprit, and so he accuses Watson, with the motive being that Watson wants to prove that he is a co-detective. Watson is arrested and scheduled to hang, but someone frees him and brings him cake. Holmes meanwhile works out that he loves Watson and goes to save him, but on finding the cake crumbs he works out that the culprit is housekeeper Mrs. Hudson, the daughter of Moriarty. She plans on killing Queen Victoria on the Titanic using a bomb before reuniting with her father in America. Holmes rescues Watson. Watson finds and disposes of the bomb, which lands on Mrs. Hudson's lifeboat and exploding seconds later. Grace and Millicent depart the next morning on the Titanic's maiden voyage. Holmes gifts Watson with a deerstalker hat, and Holmes shows that on the outside of their house a new plaque has been added naming Watson a co-detective. Well, I've watched it now. Was it as bad as I thought? Yes, quite possibly worse. I've streamlined the plot to the basics. Here's what I omitted. Watson at the beginning is trying to kill himself. He mistakes Holmes telling him to kill himself another way to avoid destroying his prize marrow. Watson lands on it anyway. Holmes also spanks the marrow and calls it a bitch. There are 3 Donald Trump jokes in this 90-minute movie. 2 of them are in the first 6 minutes. Mrs. Hudson is shown sleeping with multiple famous partners, such as Mark Twain, Albert Einstein, and Harry Houdini. Moriarty's doppelganger is portrayed as someone who can't stop pleasuring himself. Sherlock throws up multiple times in one scene upon seeing a dead body. Millicent is described as being raised by feral cats and having the mental capacity of a 4-year-old. This turns out to be a lie at the end. There is a ghost parody using Unchained Melody whilst cake is being cleaned off a corpse. The list of symptoms for poison that Watson experiences includes drama queen syndrome, confused mime, and lactation. Holmes and Watson get drunk, send a drunken telegram along with a dick pic, and then Holmes pisses his pants. Holmes and Watson take a selfie with Queen Victoria complete with duck lips. Afterwards they hit her in the head twice and try to dispose of the body by flushing her down the toilet. She wakes up to no memory of it. Holmes hits Watson in the back of the head with a croquet mallet, giving him a concussion to test if Dr. Hart is a real doctor, because a woman doctor is farcical. Sherlock and Mycroft are telepathic. Sherlock realises his feelings for Watson in a song. Amazingly, these are the more egregious things I take issue with. Holmes and Watson is possibly the worst film I have ever seen. There is almost no love, care or respect shown to the source material, and the accents used by Reilly and Ferrell are awful. They're going for so bad it's funny, but it's so bad it's borderline offensive. Holmes is shown to be a very smart individual a lot of the time, but so stupid in others. Several times in the film, Holmes will take the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock route and analyse the upcoming situation. The problem is that this is done 4 or 5 times and it doesn't work once. Watson, on the other hand, hero worships Holmes throughout and then fanboys over Queen Victoria. He doesn't seem to have any ambition or drive until it's necessary to the plot. Ferrell and Reilly clearly have a chemistry, but their style of gross out humour is puerile and immature, just like in Step Brothers. That being said, 2 moments did make me chuckle. The spin class on penny farthings, and the fact that an American couldn't be the killer because they'd have used a gun. For every slightly clever joke though, there are 20 that are either bad or awful. What's worse is the cast members that are wasted, and some of them do a really good job in a terrible film. Rob Brydon is incredibly talented and plays the straight man in Lestrade, in his normal Welsh voice. Considering his brilliant vocal range, it's surprising that he isn't playing a Londoner. Steve Coogan does everything he can as a one-handed tattooist. Not the best character, but he does what he can with it. Ralph Fiennes is a talented actor and would be a brilliant Moriarty, but the majority of his role is playing a doppelganger who overly pleasures himself. An absolutely terrible waste. I love Hugh Laurie, and again, in another version of Mycroft, he would be perfect. But instead he's having a telepathic conversation with Holmes. If you want to see Hugh Laurie in something brilliant, check out The Night Manager alongside Tom Hiddleston. That is well worth a watch. I want to talk about the fight scene for a moment, because as a wrestling fan, it had more to it than a casual film fan. Braun is played by Adam Scherr, or as he's known in WWE, Braun Strowman. It's amazing to me that they use his WWE name. That and using ring announcer Michael Buffer. Who's Michael Buffer? He over the years has made the line, "Oh, let's get ready to rumble!" his own. But it's butchered here when he says, "Let's get ready to scuffle." Some people might like this change, but if you're getting someone who's famous for one line and one line only, make him say the line. I think the idea of them fighting in a hexagon was supposed to be a mix of a traditional wrestling ring and the octagon from UFC, but this idea is something TNA wrestling did years ago, so they can't even claim that. To be fair, I doubt they even know what TNA wrestling was though. A cameo I did enjoy, even if it made absolutely no sense, was Billy Zane boarding the Titanic. I say it didn't make sense because they name Billy Zane, modern day actor, and he responds. Him boarding as his character from the film Titanic would have made more sense. It would have had me smile instead of scratching my head in confusion. Thing is, I can't even say this film's been made well. I noticed at least 2 instances where there's deliberate dubbing over Mrs. Hudson's dialogue with different wording. This isn't unusual in TV and film, but for me to notice it so blatantly, twice in the same film, screams poor filmmaking, especially for a film with a $42 million budget. Thankfully, I'm not the only one who thinks so. Critics panned the film, and even Steve Coogan made fun of it at the BAFTA Britannia Awards ceremony. The film was also nominated for 6 Golden Raspberries, winning Worst Picture, Worst Director, Worst Supporting Actor for John C. Reilly, and Worst Prequel, Remake, Ripoff or Sequel. It lost out on Worst Actor and Worst Screen Combo both to Donald Trump, who played himself in Death of a Nation and Fahrenheit 9/11, which hardly seems fair. So I have a theory as to why the film did so badly, aside from the obvious. Who is this film for? Considering the sexual jokes, the swearing and the references to things like Ghost and Titanic, that suggests it's for adults. The thing is, the toilet humour, crude nature and cartoonish violence suggest it's for a younger audience. The film is rated 12 in the UK or PG-13 in America. I can't imagine that many people above that age are going to enjoy Holmes and Watson, and it's not suitable for people below that age. Even taking that into consideration, a spoof of Sherlock Holmes and John Watson could work. I picture it as something like the live-action Pink Panther films. They're not the best films, but they are miles better than this. Part of the reason is the dichotomy between the two characters. Duo comedies like this work when one is silly and one is a straight man. By having both the stars, who take up 95% of the screen time, be the silly ones, it's overkill, especially when the jokes are awful. The acting, story, lack of care for the source material, humour, dubbing, structure and so much more make Holmes and Watson a terrible film. I rank it alongside Fear.com and Team America World Police as the worst films I've ever seen, with almost nothing positive to take away from it. Holmes and Watson is a catastrophic failure of a movie from top to bottom. I hated watching it, and hopefully I'll never have to watch it again. There are 2 saving graces for me having watched Holmes and Watson. The worst film on the list has now been selected, and we raised a lot of money for charity. Holmes and Watson is absolute dog shit. It's elementary. Before we end the video, I would like to once again thank everyone for the nominations and support over the years doing the Film Review Open Challenge. Holmes and Watson is number 50, and I don't intend to stop anytime soon. That being said, coming up next for the Film Review Open Challenge is The Puppet Master. For now though, thank you very much for watching.